I'm just going to start out by saying I think we all owe our fans and all the city of Jacksonville an apology, because we're the ones saying for the whole time, for the entire offseason, the slogan should be, different this year. It just feels a little different. And maybe it did in the first half, and then the second half, it was more of what we're accustomed to. They were playing all the greatest hits, bad penalties, bad turnovers, drop balls, questionable coaching decisions. They played all the greatest hits, Brent, and it was frustrating to say the least to watch.
That's a really good point. And that's going to be, maybe we're jumping into my concerns about everything right away. And maybe we just start right there, Austin. There are deeper concerns about this game than just the loss. There's obviously, the headline is this. If Travis Etienne scores, the game's over, right, Austin?
You would think so, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and I understand that's – go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you go.
And I was going to say, and I understand that's the play, right? That play right there, it's essentially a 14-point swing. You score a touchdown, and you win that game. And I get it was a monumental play, Brent, but at the end of the day, this game, there's so many ups and downs in any game. And I just feel like any solid to great team can overcome moments like that. And you saw the Jaguars had that moment. It happened, and then they couldn't overcome it. And then it just snowballed from there, and it got worse and worse. And once again, we've seen this story, it feels like, a million times. And yesterday, it just seemed kind of like a rerun again.
Let's hit Brian Thomas Jr. as a real big positive, too, here, right? And then we'll get to the defensive side, because I'm not – listen, one game does not make a season, and the good and the bad and the win column, the loss column, everything. But that was a hell of a first start. To go against Ramsey, to be able to make that kind of difference. His stat line says 4 for 47, but it was a bigger difference than that in the first half. And then for whatever reason, they just neutralized him in the second. I thought in real time maybe Ramsey just locked him up because he's that good of a player, and so they couldn't go that way.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, maybe it was just they didn't try too hard to get him the football, considering they threw the ball 7 times in the second half. Oh, man, Brian Thomas Jr. looks like if you can beat Ramsey now, and he was open that whole play on the PI. Like, he was open by a lot. Yeah. Give credit to Ramsey. His closing speed to recover is damn good, too. And the ball was underthrown. I thought the ball was late. Well, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be a player now.
No, without a doubt. And I think, you obviously have a good one there in Brian Thomas Jr. Like, I think we all expected him, like, to have a great rookie campaign, Brent. Like, what was it going to look like? Because there's a lot of targets to go around and everything. But I thought that Brian Thomas Jr. in one half exceeded expectations of what he's capable of. And once again, like, was Ramsey 100%? I don't care. Like, the fact that you had a rookie wide receiver in his first meaningful NFL game go out there and did what he did, have a touchdown, jaw jack back and forth a little bit with Jalen Ramsey. I've seen everything I need to see to know, like, okay, I think the Jaguars have a special one there, Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Like, do you know sometimes, like right off the rip, and it seems like other teams do, like it didn't take us long to know Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or, whoever it is. And I'm not trying to say he's going to be those guys, but maybe it's CeeDee Lamb. Like, I don't even know if he's going to be that good, man. But I do think what I love about this guy is that he started kind of slow and pedestrian in camp. And then since then, he's just kind of slowly taking a step. It hasn't been like this one big highlight or, man, I'm awesome from the jump, and then there's a little deflation because it's hard to keep up with that. It's just been this steady climb, and the speed continues to show, and it showed yesterday. And he's got some dog in him, too. He's got a quiet personality, but you can see the dog, the catch against the Chiefs, the stuff with Ramsey. There's a lot to buy into here, and I think that first impression was really good.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to like, Brent. And, like, I mean, I don't know if you compared, like, the other numbers of rookie wide receivers, like Marvin, Maserati Marv yesterday was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Neighbors, I don't want to think he had 6 catches or anything, but like that touchdown was huge, and it shows that they're not afraid to go to him off the get-go. So Yeah, I think they have a special one, Brian Thomas Jr. I think he's going to be dependable for a long time to come, and maybe even more this year, because once again, Christian Kirk kind of had that mantle, and with all due respect to Christian Kirk, he's done a lot for the franchise. Yesterday just wasn't it for Christian Kirk.
All right, I want to ask you specifically about a couple of different things. Devin Lloyd, I thought, played excellent. Like, that was a surprise. Like, after all the conversation of Devin Lloyd, and again, I know we kid around a little bit, but we didn't know. I didn't even know if he was going to play. Like, if now they mixed Chad Muma in, they mixed bodies in, they took Foye Oluokun off the field sometimes. They were really mixing bodies from a conditioning standpoint, and maybe that's what they'll do anyway. But I thought Devin Lloyd, and I think somebody just told us here on Pro Football Focus, he graded out the best of any player on the Jags yesterday. And you know what? It kind of looked like it, Austin.
Yeah, so this was kind of, I mean, and there's so much to break down about it. But to me, some of his best plays actually came when the Dolphins went in motion. When they used, like, you know, the wide receiver motion to come to his side. Because when that happened, and give credit once again to Foye Oluokun, because he's the guy that makes this whole thing run. When you saw a lot of motion yesterday, you didn't see, once again, guys turning back thinking, like, what I got. You saw Foye shout it out. You saw him point. And then, in my understanding, I would assume that Devin knew, okay, well, now I'm kind of like the outside guy, and Foye's more the inside guy. And that happened on, man, I could probably count at least 5 or 6 times where that happened, just because the Dolphins used so much, you know, pre-snap motion. And once again, I think, like, yeah, I thought Lloyd had a great game. And obviously I've been very critical about it. Brent, you think I hate the guy, which I don't, but I've been very critical about it. But to me, it comes down to, once again, the dominance that is, you know, the cerebral assassin that is Foye Oluokun, because I felt like a lot of Devin Lloyd's performance yesterday stemmed from Foye making sure everybody's on the same page with all that motion.
And that's cool. That's fine. Like, that's good as long as everybody's doing their roles, and that's a role Foye is going to do. I thought he was a sure tackler yesterday, too, and Foye jumped the one route, man. He thought he wanted the pick. I thought that would have been a really hard pick, but at the same time, he read that so well. The way we were sitting in the end zone kind of view, or the corner of the end zone, I was looking right at that, and it was a heck of a read by Foye. If you know the play I'm talking about, where he kind of came over the middle and deflected a pass. So there were some good moments like that. Okay, I want to ask you about a couple others. Brent,
real quick though, I just want to say, like, listen, the biggest question that I had going to that game was the linebackers. How are they going to handle the running backs? How are they going to handle the motion and everything? I thought, I mean, obviously the defensive line did pretty good too, but I thought Foye and Lloyd played a hell of a game. So shout out to them, because I was very critical, very analytical of can they actually get this job done? And I thought for the most part, they exceeded expectations in that linebacking core.
But hey, listen, I always try to do this, guys. I don't know if it's the right thing. I can get, like, as mad as hell as Twitter does and everything else, but I try to see it from the opposite lens, and I try to live in the moment to it, where the game was. And I just know Doug being Doug, like, he's an aggressive guy. And I knew you could almost feel it in the stadium. Like, there was a little desperation at that time where you almost knew that if you punted it back to Miami, they were going to at least kick a field goal and tie it up anyway. And so I almost could tell what he was thinking, but he's the guy getting paid, like, a lot of money to also think of the other side. And it's less about the defense. I'll give you one more reason why I think he was thinking that way, because he knew the defense eventually was going to get tired. They were on the field a lot. The Jags were not holding the ball for as long as even though they were up in that game 17-7, they had not held on to the football as much as you think they would, or even they wanted to rest their defense and keep Miami's offense off the field. So I think all of that is why he went for it. But he also has to be the guy that's been through this so many times that it's like, don't blink. And, well, I thought he blinked. And he almost, like, gave that kind of, you know, aura of panic to his whole team, because, holy cow, fumble at the goal line, game's over, to 80-yard touchdown, damn it, to now we're just going to go for it. Like, this is it. Like, it's like there were still 2 minutes to go in the third, or that was the end of the third quarter. That's why they had time, because there was a third quarter change. There's still 15 minutes to go in the game. So even if you do kick it away and they come down and score and tie it up, well, you got plenty of time. Settle this thing down. And he kind of panicked there, which I haven't seen a lot of that out of Doug in that sense. I've seen aggression, but I haven't seen panic. So I thought that was a little bit of a sign of panic and a lost faith in his football team at that moment, almost like he got wrapped up in it the way a player would get wrapped up in it. And so I thought that was a bad sign from a coach that I think is a really good football coach and has a good feel for the game. And I thought that was a mistake by him to do it. And honestly, it was a mistake in hindsight where the Jags didn't even have to pay for it. Sanders missed the kick. Like, it was actually a neutral play. It ended up being a neutral play in the game in many respects. So then there's one other element to this, though, Austin, in that part is you have got to, with all this play calling stuff, I believe it's collaborative in some respect, but the bottom line is he's put this all on him. And so it goes back to the Trevor trust. Give it to your best player. Why are you running sideways? Why are you running sideways on fourth down? Like, if you have a commercial break to come up with a play, there's no way in hell Doug isn't a part of that play call. Like, he is a part of that play call. And you didn't put it in 16's hands? I just don't know if it's ever going to get fixed in Jacksonville. I can't explain it. I think, Doug, if you look at this 3-year, well, 2 now plus year run, his offense can move the ball up and down the field. If it's 2nd and 20, they can get out of 2nd and 20. If it's 1st and 15, they get out of 1st and 15. Shoot, if it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, they got to play and sometimes make it more often than probably a lot of other teams. They can't get a freaking yard. When it matters, this Doug Peterson coached football team for now going on 3 years cannot get a yard. And that's on 2 guys. That's on Doug and Trent Baalke. I don't get it, Austin, but I have a major concern that this problem is not fixed, and it's not going to be fixed.
It's hard for me to give this team the benefit of the doubt, though, Brent, when you talk about the 4th and 1, when you talk about some of the decisions, when it's stuff that we've seen over and over again. And I don't care if it's a new season or not. It almost seems like, and I'm not going to call it a curse or anything. I'm not going to get like that. I kind of want to call it a curse, but I'm not going to call it that. But it seems like it just lingers from last season. And I don't know how many teams can really speak on this, where it's like, what the things that you were complaining about last year, the things that you couldn't do last year. Okay, you bring in new players. You got new captains. You got new leaders. Maybe a new philosophy, a new offensive scheme and everything. And it's still the same. Like, how many teams, how many good teams, how many teams with expectations of maybe going to the playoffs can say that? Not too many. But my question is do they make maybe a little mistake of at least not sitting Etienne for a series or so, just to be like, hey, we can't have this. This is the old Jacksonville Jaguars way. We can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a delicate balance, man, and you know this because you've been in it. And it might be different for a ball carrier than it is for a defensive guy, but I think you can't just say, okay, we lost confidence in you, right? There was a little bit of that last year with Tank. And I am not going to be hypocritical here on this one. I have been a huge fan of ETN. I am a huge fan of ETN. I think he's a dynamic player for them. I think he's one of their most dynamic players. I think that's why I go back to the top of the show. And when I'm talking about game-changing players, he's one of the guys that can be it. So he can't change the game in a negative way. But he did on this day. He also didn't fumble all last year after he went through a brief spell of fumbling in his second season, which was essentially his rookie year because he missed the whole rookie year. I'm not doing that. I thought Tank Bigsby was good, really good. And that's a great sign. Great sign. I mean, he had 2 of the biggest plays in the game coming off the goal line. 17-yard run to 26-yard run. He was tremendous. But I'm not here on one game sample to sit here and tell you that all of a sudden, because of a fumble and some good runs by Bigsby, that he's better. I saw Chris Sims say he's the better. I mean, come on. Not one, no way. I'm not giving up on a guy there yet, Austin. I don't think that's fair to ETN. I think he's done a lot. I think he's done a lot behind a questionable run offensive line at times. And I think they're going to need him, and they need him to do a lot. No way. Give it back to him. He's still your guy. And Bigsby may help share the load and earn even more. And good for him if he does. But that's a one-game sample. And if you're switching things on a one-game sample, to me that's super panic mode. And that would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, Brent. But at the same time, to me, at least running the football, Tank Bigsby looked better yesterday. He did, and I understand that you've had a lot of rapport built up with Travis Etienne, and you're to continue to use him. I get that. I understand all that. But at some point, I wonder if you just go, we have to ride the hot hand a little bit, and we have to lean more towards Tank Bigsby. Now, it's a one-off. It's one game. You have Cleveland coming to town now, and obviously we'll break that down later in the week and everything. But I just feel like from that last game where if you want to run the ball and it's fourth and short, like, yeah, I would probably still trust Travis Etienne right now, Brent. But now in hindsight, hindsight being 2020 in retrospect, I may give it now more like the short yardage carries to Tank Bigsby because he hasn't proven me wrong yet.
Trevor Lawrence was brought here to change this franchise. That's what first of all, he wasn't brought here. It's like you picked him. And you had no choice, and everybody would have picked him. But he has that ability everybody thinks and believes, and that's why you paid him. And I'm on board with that, no doubt. Let's go. But let him do it. Let him do it. Let him be the guy that changes the franchise. And then if he doesn't, well, then obviously it's a little bit on him. But I just sat down with him last week, and he knows that. He knows he's the quarterback, the guy that changes the franchise. There's a lot on his plate. He wants that. And then you threw it 21 times, and you didn't give it to him on 4th and 1. You took the ball out of his hands. So the teams that change. Josh Allen changed Buffalo because they let him change Buffalo. Joe Burrow changed Cincinnati because they let him change Cincinnati. C.J. Stroud has changed Houston because they let him change Houston. When are they going to let Trevor change Jacksonville? It better be soon, Austin.
Yeah, it's got to be soon, Brent. And listen, I don't know if it's a case like they feel like that he can't. I don't know. I don't like. A part of me wants to say like, okay, well, can he handle it? Like, is that the reason? Because I'm trying to think of another reason why they wouldn't just turn it over to him. Because you're paying him like it. Where he was drafted, you drafted him to be that guy. You don't go number 1 overall and don't change things, change a culture. You're not one of the highest paid quarterbacks. Now Dak has something to say about it, but you're not the second highest paid quarterback on a per year basis and can't change it. Like, that's not how this works. Like, look at what Tua. And say what you want about Tua, and then they paid him, much to the chagrin of some people, but they put the ball out in his hands. Now, the ball only had to fly 5-10 yards per play. Like, he wasn't throwing a lot of deep shots, but they still put the ball in his hands. Okay. I saw the ball in Jordan Love's hands a lot before he got hurt. Okay. I see the ball. In any quarterback that's making the money that Trevor Lawrence is making, you let him go out there or lose or win the game. And it seems like you didn't give him a chance.